Japan's constitutional commitment to forever renounce war as a sovereign right of the nation has been a unique sign of hope for decades in the context of what Pope Francis has called World War III fought piecemeal. In Syria and Yemen, Afghanistan and Colombia, Iraq and Ethiopia, now in Ukraine, the world has witnessed the brutality of war and its destructive impact on human lives and on the earth herself. But the war in Ukraine is not only a catastrophe in itself, it already has begun to fuel a new arms race and to make nuclear abolition much less likely. Given this, Japan's example of constitutional nonviolence is even more essential. At a time when the world urgently needs to address climate change and to meet the needs of the most marginalized and impoverished communities, the Ukraine war has taken us in a calamitous direction toward what in reality is counterfeit security. The human community simply cannot sustain the levels of war and violence that have such unconscionable consequences. The war in Ukraine has even forced us to ask what we mean by defense. What is self-defense in an intensely integrated world where war is likely to include hypersonic missiles, autonomous weapons, and a plethora of illegal weapons, from landmines and cluster bombs to nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons? For the sake of present and future generations, we have to find a better way to live together on this small planet, to replace the logic of violence in which we are mired with a logic of nonviolence. Japan's experience is needed now more than ever to help humanity accomplish a paradigm shift to nonviolence, making it even more important that the powerful intent and inspiring results of Article 9 not be lost. Pope Francis' condemnation of war could not be clearer or more accurate. War is madness, he said. Wars are always unjust. Enough. Stop it. May the weapons be silenced. Let us be serious about peace. But it will not be enough to hope for a new world. We have to build it. And Pax Christi is convinced that nonviolence is the only way to do so. Nonviolence, which is broader than pacifism, is a spirituality, a way of life, a universal ethic at the core of our humanity. It is more than an ideal. It is more than aspirational. As we've been seeing in Ukraine and elsewhere, nonviolence, from diplomacy and negotiations to civil resistance, can be a very effective defensive tool, may in fact be the only really useful tool on the way to just peace. Japan can help the world imagine how to create the conditions for true security and lasting peace. In the public arena, nonviolence is often misrepresented, misunderstood, too narrowly defined, or wrongly dismissed as either passive or naive. Very strong evidence, however, suggests a different conclusion, that nonviolent tools and strategies can be both powerful and effective. In fact, one of the great gifts of our age is the growing recognition of active nonviolence as a positive, constructive, and powerful force for social change, a process for addressing the underlying causes of violent conflict, as should have happened years ago in Ukraine, a process for ending violence without lethal force, for transforming conflict, for effectively protecting people and communities at risk, and for fostering just and peaceful alternatives. Given what we now know about the consequences of war, physical, economic, psychological, ecological, spiritual, and what we have witnessed over and over as wars fail to accomplish whatever was their stated purpose, and war begets violence, begets war, it seems evident that if we are ever going to achieve the kind of just peace and real security for which we all long, the global community needs to give vastly more intellectual and financial resources, creativity, and courage to developing effective conflict transformation, peace building, and other nonviolent tools and to applying them early. Nonviolence can mobilize our communities, our nations, and our world to promote the things that we know make for peace: economic justice, human dignity, a flourishing planet, mutual respect, and a world free from every form of violence, whether physical, structural, systemic, cultural, or ecological. We need to rethink our understanding of security. Catholic theologian Brian Massengale said it well years ago. Security is a state of being that flows from the inclusion of all in the bounty of the earth. Inclusive human security, as opposed to national security, guarantees access to food, clean water, health care, education, and employment, and respects the integrity of creation. Exactly what is destroyed by excessive war and preparations for war. In fact, the kind of inclusive human security we seek would emerge from a globalization of solidarity that promotes international cooperation even with our enemies and preemptively addresses the root causes of violence and war, managing deep grievances and conflicts before they turn violent. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida would serve well his own country and the world by renewing Japan's commitment to Article 9, which over 75 years ago aspired sincerely to an international peace based on order, and by rejecting massive expansion of spending on military preparedness in pursuit of bogus security.
Hello, my name is Yi Kiho. I'm a professor at Hanshin University in South Korea. I believe that there are at least 3 reasons that we must protect Article 9 of the Constitution of Japan. First, Article 9 lifts up the principles and philosophy of the civic state, which can act based on a humanism that is rational and compassionate, not of a state that pursues only national interests and is moved by nationalism. Second, Article 9 does not belong to Japan alone. It is a promise that was made together with other nations and worthy of being considered by neighboring countries. Actually, Article 9 truly takes effect when other countries jointly renounce threats of war and military force forever. Thus, it is a treasure of humanity and a peace commons for Northeast Asia, which should be adopted and implemented by other countries. When Article 9 is firmly positioned in the new DNA of 21st century nations, I believe we will be able to create nations that can make peace, rather than make war, nations that can spread peace while preserving it. Third, Article 9 is not just a springhead for the state, but for a civic state that citizens create together, raising their own voices. It expands opportunities for citizens to become political protagonists on a daily basis, without being overwhelmed by the logic of security, and anticipates a transnational civil society in which citizens find solidarity on the basis of friendship across national borders. Most countries want to be a great power. The United States, too, clamors behind slogans like America First and Make America Great Again, MAGA. It has been almost 10 years since China proclaimed its status as a G2 nation. Although we have the United Nations, it's the G7 and G20 countries that gather and decide global issues. It might be just a matter of fact that everyone wants to become a great power. The great powers of the 21st century need to become peace states rather than new empires. Peace states, no matter how small, do not divide into blocks known as alliances, but protect their own identity and autonomy while pursuing prosperity together. Currently, we have a war between Ukraine and Russia in Europe. The EU does not strengthen individual states, but is a mutually built peace process in European region beyond state. The opposite of this is NATO, a Cold War process that is based on military force. It is extremely unfortunate that Russia is suppressing the EU process while complicating the NATO process. We should think about these two different processes comparatively. Over here, we had better deliberate on Article 9 again, how we could transform nation-state based on military alliance into peace state based on mutual respect. Alliance diplomacy always forces a state to take a side and to assume that the opposite side is the enemy. This structure leads states to war preparations. Through this process, the state always emerges as the sole actor in global politics, so that nationalism overpowers civil society. In order to completely eliminate the possibility of war and create a peaceful East Asia by 2045, the 100th anniversary of the end of World War II, should we not spend the next 23 years preparing together? At the 1955 Bandung Conference held in Bandung, Indonesia, the topics of independence for Asian and African countries and of a new world order for peace were considered. The philosophy and spirit dreamt of at that time endures. Although it didn't materialize politically, that dream still remains in East Asia. I would be grateful if we can strive together to revive Article 9 of the Constitution of Japan, sharing the creativity of those who will contemplate peace in 2045, and together imagine what kind of future we can navigate toward. Article 9 serves as a navigational clue for us. I would like us to protect Article 9 and spread it further, to treat it as the DNA for a new civic state. I would like for us to work together to create a peaceful East Asia. Thank you. Looking back at the Global Interreligious Conference on Article 9 of the Japanese Peace Constitution, Rev. Ono Bunko, Buddhist monk. Held November 29th to December 1st, 2007, at Tokyo's Korean YMCA in Japan, with approximately 220 participants representing 14 countries, the first Asia Interreligious Conference on Article 9 called on all people of faith to treasure Article 9 as a legacy of the whole human race and establish a global Article 9 network. At that time in Japan, 60 years after the war, an attempt was being made to radically alter the model of a war-renouncing country. The U.S.-Japan military alliance had been strengthened and emergency legislation enacted to put into effect a defense system against a potential East Asian enemy. In May of the same year, the national referendum law had been approved with the objective of constitutional revision, thereby broadly opening a path to amending the Constitution, with Article 9 its greatest target. This conference was started because it would be indefensible for religious leaders desiring peace to do nothing in response to this critical situation. Therefore, they put the principles of Article 9 into practice based on each of their religious teachings and rose up in an effort to reach out to the world in order that a disastrous war would never again take place on earth. The second conference was held in 2009 at the headquarters of the Presbyterian Church in the Republic of Korea, PROK, located in Seoul. The third time was in 2011 and was hosted by the Okinawa Christian Institute. From the fourth conference, which was held in 2014 once again at Tokyo's Korean YMCA in Japan, the name was changed to the Global Interreligious Conference on Article 9 of the Japanese Peace Constitution, with a wide range of overseas participants attending. The fifth conference was hosted by Shinshu Otani-ha Namba Betsuin, Minami Mido Buddhist Temple in Osaka in 2016. and the sixth was held in June 2018 at the atomic bombing site of Hiroshima. Entitled Prayer from Okinawa, the seventh conference was once again to be hosted in Okinawa. However, due to the rapid spreading of the coronavirus pandemic worldwide, there was no alternative but to connect Okinawa and Tokyo via Zoom, and in March 2021, open the Global Interreligious Conference on Article 9 with international participation online. It has been my good fortune to be able to participate in all 7 of these sessions. I have been able to interact with people of faith who seek a worldwide peace, overcome doctrinal and denominational walls by having discussions at one table for one purpose, and expand my perspective by gaining valuable opinions and advice. While we each had differing faith beliefs, I was exposed to personalities and insights that I could respect, giving me courage and hope. I personally believe that we were able to hold a series of truly meaningful conferences. However, ideals and reality are worlds apart, and the times are increasingly grim. The more impressive the tone and the finer the content of each conference's statements and appeals, the more often they were stored away in desks as ineffective sheets of paper. This biannual conference was complete as far as a conference. However, it was not greatly influential as a social action, and I have a feeling that there were many parts of the conference that ended with the self-satisfaction of the participants. Taking the present war in Ukraine, there is an aspect of subjugation of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which had attempted to split from the Russian Orthodox Church, that has raised criticism that more than participating in war, religions are creating war itself. What answers do we, the Global Interreligious Conference on Article 9 of the Japanese Peace Constitution, have to offer? The theme raised for the 7th Article 9 conference, which was held via Zoom, was Article 9 of the Japanese Peace Constitution and Peace in Asia, Prayer from Okinawa. We express deep concern that the previous Abe/Liberal Democratic Party administration attempted to change Article 9 of the Constitution, which is Japan's pledge of peace to Asia and a promise to never war again, and that it broke the restrictions of the Constitution by embracing the right of collective self-defense. For the same reasons, we also opposed the concept of first strike against enemy bases. Revision of the Peace Constitution of Japan will bring about serious instability in the East Asia region. Japan must not become a threat to neighboring countries, nor a cause of destabilization. This is the challenge facing Japan right now, and it will be an urgent issue in Asia. Although this appeal made by the Interreligious Conference is truly a timely and distressing one, there has been no concrete action since then. While action may be left to that of the individuals who participated in the conference, if the Kishida administration participates in NATO and expands the exercise of the right of collective self-defense, the reason for the existence of the Global Interreligious Conference on Article 9 of the Japanese Peace Constitution itself will be questioned. Isn't this the moment we must reorganize as well as reconsider the structure and administration? The global situation is about to drastically change due to the war in Ukraine. To respond to this, shouldn't we immediately consider a move to set up a more flexible activity group, collaborate with local peace organizations, share information, and globally disseminate measures for peace as people of faith? We must set this into motion as a result of the July 2020 House of Councilors election in Japan.
Religious leaders of Okinawa, Shaku Karaku. Greetings. My Dharma name is Shaku Karaku, but I am called Shaku Kako. I'm a monk with the True Pure Land Buddhism school. Actually, I've become a monk fairly recently, so even at this age, I'm still a novice. We call our home here Ramana Hermitage, and it is a runaway temple, meaning that it is open to those in need or seeking refuge. Today, the weather is very nice. Not only the blue sky and white clouds, but you can see the ocean so well and it is such a deep blue. But the water was a much, much deeper blue when I moved here 16 years ago. Though, according to the locals, if you compare the color of the ocean at that time to what it was long ago, it was even more beautiful then. It really makes me angry to see just how muddy it has become over these last 3 or 4 years. This is due to the impact of the land reclamation going on at Henoko Bay for the US military base construction. Because our Nakagusuku Bay connects to Henoko, the water's muddiness obviously results from this reclamation. And the situation for Henoko really does not change. It's been 20 years since I moved to Okinawa, but the way in which the construction of US military bases is forced on us has not changed. This is not merely an Okinawa problem. It is a problem for the entire country of Japan, a problem between Japan and the United States, and a problem with the Japanese citizens that recognize that it's terrible about Henoko and Okinawa, isn't it, but are indifferent to the situation. At this rate, I believe the situation will truly not change. Everyone, please come to Okinawa. Go to Henoko, join a sit-in or go out into the ocean. Experience it, please, and then kindly pass your experience on to your neighbors. Don't stay just 1 or 2 nights, and don't combine this with a sightseeing tour. Come firmly with Henoko as your target, and please come often. Our local Okinawans are exhausted. If Japan's problem is not seriously taken up by folks from other prefectures, I really don't think we have any hope. The problems for Okinawa are not just with Henoko. There are both US and Japanese military bases. Currently, the Japanese armed forces, that is the self-defense forces, are steadily coming and building bases on the Sakishima Islands of Ishigaki, Miyako, and Yonaguni. There is also the issue in the southern part of the main island of Okinawa. The soil being used for both the construction of a military base and being mixed with sand for landfill contains the remains of those whose lives were brutally taken by the war. That's the way things go here. I believe that is the same as using the bodies of those thrown into gas chambers by the Nazis. As you can see, horrible things related to the bases are scattered all over Okinawa. There are issues like the drainage of contaminated water from the bases, and too many others to even mention. I am totally disgusted. Although not in reaction to that, but I feel the native people of Okinawa, Uchinanchu and their dialect, care about things that cannot be seen. They are a people who cherish their ancestors. For one festival called the New Year of the Next World, or New Year of Future Generations in Okinawan, all of the relatives gather for a banquet and celebrate the new year together with their ancestors. They also commonly believe in a fairy called Kijimuna. I think that is because since long ago, the Uchinanchu native Okinawans correctly understood that life starts from death. In Buddhism, although overcoming death is a major theme, I think that Uchinanchu may have already cleared that hurdle. Peace, I believe, is to be able to die naturally. When one dies naturally, one is born naturally. Dying naturally is to die an inevitable death. One must never die from a traffic accident, a man-made disaster of any type, suicide, being put to death, or war. I believe that peace is the calm closing of one's life in a lifespan determined by nature, in a place one desires to be, within a world where human-caused deaths do not happen, and in fact are inconceivable.
Grace and peace to you. Since 2007, the United Church of Canada has joined in the Global Interreligious Conference on Article 9, co-sponsored by the National Christian Council in Japan. This interfaith initiative has brought together Christians, Buddhists, and others to pray together and to develop strategies to deepen peace and justice advocacy in Northeast Asia and the world. The conference has been held 7 times since 2007, most recently in 2021, in the midst of the global COVID pandemic, through the online Zoom platform. Through this initiative, together we have sought to build a world without war, uniting voices in Japan and around the world for peace, justice, and a common home in Asia and the world. We have joined our voices with partners in Japan, Northeast Asia, and beyond in seeking and maintaining peace with justice. We are inspired by God's vision of peace as well-being and harmony, as right relationships among people and nature, where there is no fear. It is a vision that includes all nations, cultures, and peoples, the whole inhabited earth, indeed, the whole cosmos. And together we understand the quest for peace to be at the very heart of ecumenism. As people of faith, we know that peacemaking requires abolishing war and transforming armed conflict. The Hebrew scriptures share the vision that all shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. We believe that engaging in war constitutes human failure. People of faith must take and address the roots of violence and take up the responsibility to prevent conflicts and to protect people and creation. We know that assessing the causes and the conduct of war begins with the reluctance toward entering into armed conflict. And we know that we must promote a deep desire for resolution, reconciliation, and lasting peace. The United Church of Canada is in solidarity with those who seek to maintain Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution that states, "The Japanese people forever renounce war as a sovereign right." And we join with partners in Japan and Northeast Asia to describe Article 9 of the Constitution of Japan as a world treasure, a statement that the use of force can and must be renounced. Together, may we have the courage to build a world without war, where the weak are protected and none go hungry or are poor, where the riches of creation are protected, enjoyed, and shared by all, where all people live in harmony and mutual respect, where peace is built with justice and justice is guided by love. Amen, and may it be so.